Hi everybody, welcome to this episode of Prescott Gallery of Homes. I'm your host Steve Irwin, and today we have two special guests. We have Oberg, which is our former mayor here in beautiful Prescott, and we have Armstrong, which is I'm familiar with because you do a lot of business in my office. He's an excavator. He helps people build their homes by doing their foundation.
Yes. Exactly.
And you said it right. You said anything from the dirt down.
Anything from the ground down, yes.
Ground down. And so, Rand, how long have you been doing the excavating?
It started my business in 1994, so about 26 years now.
Here in the Prescott area?
Yes, here in Prescott, and I've been pretty much all over the county.
Okay, excellent. And so the reason you guys are on this show that I invited you is because you're both running for office. Mm-hmm. And you're both running for Board of Supervisors. Now you're in District 1,
yeah.
Which is Prescott down to Black Canyon.
No, let's go down to Wickenburg.
Oh, Wickenburg,
Yeah.
okay. Rand, your district is?
District 4.
Which is part of Prescott?
Which is Williamson Valley north to the county line.
Oh, excellent. So you go all the way.
Chino, Paulden, Ash Forks, Lakeman, everywhere.
So you guys both have a pretty
Big area,
large,
yeah.
pretty large district.
About a quarter of the county in each of those two districts.
Wow.
Very
Well,
rural too.
Yeah.
Very rural. And well, thanks for volunteering the run because it's very important. I think that people don't understand the importance that our County Board of Supervisors has. So campaign's coming to an end. Voters will decide on November 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
So you both have my support. That's for sure.
Appreciate that.
So you're both conservative, and I think you both have the ear of the people, and I think you're both probably very conservative, and that's a lot of our voters. So let's start out a little bit. The hot topic that's been in the paper almost every day for as long as I can remember is the new jail. And so, Rand, what's your take on this thing?
I think this new jail is basically being rammed down the voters' throat. We've twice turned down votes on the new jail. They've said that those were just how we wanted to pay for that new jail, but everybody that I've talked to has understood that as no votes on a new jail.
So, I brought this flyer up, and I'm going to have it put up on the screen. There's been a comment made that people that don't support the jail don't support our people in blue. What's your take on it?
That's a complete falsehood. I think that's a spin started by pro-jail people. I completely support our local law enforcement, have nothing but respect for them. One of the hardest jobs I could ever think of would be being a law enforcement officer and dealing with basically the worst aspect of society every day. The job that they do, 99.99% of the time, is a fabulous job. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And they've been in the paper, and not in our area, but in other states. But, I went ahead and I made these yard signs up because I support our men in blue. I'm a retired probation officer. I don't know if you guys knew that. They are considered law enforcement, although it never felt like I was law enforcement, but they are considered a law enforcement officer and officer of the court. But been many years doing that, helped run the drug court program. So I support our men in blue. I had these signs made up, and I think if you support something, you should put your name on it. And so I do. I have my name right there on that. If people want one, give me a call. I'll come out and put it in your yard for free. Absolutely no cost. Harry, what's your take on this new jail?
Well, first of all, like I've been saying all along, I think is not the right time because we need to see how the economy is going to go in the long run. I don't think we're out of the woods yet on knowing what our revenues are going to be in the near future. The second thing is I think it's the wrong place.
It's been in the paper. I read Bill Williams' lawsuit that he presented to the board, and there's some environmental concerns. So
Yes, I think Bill Williams has been in contact with an environmental engineer who's got about 30 years of service. He worked for GE and worked for APS, VP of APS and environmental studies or analysis or something. And apparently he's looked at all the environmental documents on that property out there, and he says he feels that this, if it was a regular business, they would never take that risk. Putting an $86 million building in someplace that could eventually have to be abandoned.
Well, that's a good point, because by ramming it down our throats, because I have not seen any detailed study that was current or relevant, and I would hate to think that we're going to force our public servants to work in a contaminated building.
True. And that could be also the inmates and the correction officers. They're looking at having a mental health facility out there too, so you could have mental health patients out there.
Well, and that's 65% of the people that are in jail.
Yes,
By-
I heard of over 50.
Oh, 50, yeah. Dave wrote this report on his website, shows that. And, or Scott Meters, the current chair, his website shows that. So if it is contaminated, which it sounds like it is, then we would have to abandon that building and probably tear it down.
Yes, that's, from what I understand, I guess this engineer or somebody has talked to a lawyer, and the lawyer basically said that his affidavit would be Exhibit 1 in a class action lawsuit for anybody that was sick that was ever in those buildings. And he said it would be very, very difficult to prove that they didn't get sick there.
Right.
And so that would leave the Board of Supervisors personally liable. It also would be considered negligent if they ignored the affidavit and the possibility of contamination there, and that there would be triple damages.
Wow.
To say nothing about closing the facility and having to move it someplace else.
And then, Rand, what would they, if they built it, then closed it? What would be the alternative?
I think if that site is as contaminated as they say, then you'd probably be looking at an EPA Superfund site. Years and years probably to remediate that site and cure those problems. Not to mention tearing the entire site down.
That would
And-
double, triple the cost.
Yeah. Oh,
Plus-
more than that.
Plus you would need to build a new
A
jail. I
new
mean,
jail
if we needed
somewhere else,
one, you'd
right.
have to build one, another
Right.
one.
So
So,
I'll say that ADEQ has sent a letter to the county based on 50 letters they received from citizens here, indicating their concern, saying that they feel that there's some additional work that needs to be done. So we'll see what happens.
right.
Maybe they'll go in and find out, it's not contaminated, but I can tell you that old landfill goes back to sometime in the late 30s. I know when I was a kid throwing stuff in there, I saw lead acid batteries from cars getting thrown in there.
And not a nice modern new facility like out of Grey Wolf and completely unlined,
Yeah, this was totally
leaching into the
unlined.
ground.
Yeah, so there could be serious concerns about water contamination.
Well, that's the problem with having people that lived here forever like you guys. You know where the bodies are, and you know the history, and I think that people moving into this area appreciate that because they don't know. And it takes someone with a great deal of experience to know that. So I appreciate that. I hope you guys get in, and if they don't, if current board doesn't do the right thing, I hope you guys do the right thing in January. And let's get that environmental impact study completed. Make sure that if we are going to build something, we're building it on solid ground that's not contaminated.
Right.
We owe that to our employees for the county. We owe it to the citizens of the area
Yes.
that are paying for it, out of their pocket. And so let's talk a little bit more. I noticed that you have a Matt Force report there. It talks about opioid use. Today's Prescott Courier had, I believe, 6 or 7 people a day are dying of opioids in Arizona.
Statewide, yeah.
Statewide, and it's on the increase here in Yavapai County. When you cleaned up the Prescott on these unauthorized or unsupervised treatment homes, what happened? What happened?
Well, we went from 183 down to 34 after we passed the ordinance. I think a lot of those people that were running those homes moved out of Prescott because they didn't want to meet the oversight requirements that were required by the ordinance. So they moved to the county and the Prescott Valley and some of the outlying locations. So I think there's been further issues there that they need to deal with. But the other thing, of course, is there was the following year there was a bill passed in the legislature to basically overturn our ordinance.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
So basically, right now it looks like they're on the upswing here again. So
Okay.
we'll just have to see. So as I understand right now, if people have a complaint, they have to call Arizona Department of Health to try and get them to come up and look at it. People I've talked to said they've called and nobody's ever showed up, so.
Wow.
I think that's one of the big problems, you know, I always felt that government closest to you is the most responsive government.
That's right.
And so, you know, the further away they get, you
The
got an
less
issue,
supervisors they are.
you know, you're probably not gonna get the response you need.
Unless,
You know-
unless you're the completely squeaky wheel and, yeah, then,
And you really gotta squeeze.
yeah.
You know, I remember talking to some postal carriers, and they could tell you where all these unauthorized treatment
Yeah.
homes were, because they would get a different person in mail
Yeah.
every month,
Yeah.
you know?
Sometimes weekly.
Sometimes weekly, and of course, the police department are often called, because when they are unsupervised and are not in a treatment plan, they're just simply warehousing them there, they're gonna get in trouble. You know, crime goes up in the area, so I applaud your effort to get them licensed and regulated and supervised. I think that's, now, the county has not done that. I wish they would have some regulation to regulate those. So as far as, to my knowledge, they have not yet.
To my knowledge, no.
They haven't, so that's not a good thing. On the MAC force, I think that they have a study there that they put a coalition together about opioid and drug use deaths. I think that's important to support and help educate our people, our community, because I think drug use is on the rise, particularly in a pandemic when people are already stressed to the max, you know, and so alcohol use is up and obviously drug use is up.
If people are losing their jobs, they're stressed out because of the pandemic, they don't know what's going on, maybe they're about to lose their home, then even somebody who has gone through programs and has become clean, that could easily be a tipping point and push them back over the edge, so.
Well, again, I think we need to take a look at 207.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The big problem that I see is, I was at a meeting back here.
Well, for the audience, 207 is the marijuana initiative.
Right.
Okay.
Where 3 companies are trying to get recreational marijuana approved by ballot measure.
Okay.
And I'm against that. Basically, I was at a meeting back in early 70s, when I was in the military. We were having a drug problem back then. And we had
I was in the Army in the 70s, I remember.
We had a famous Swiss pharmacologist come to us, and he said over 20 years he determined that everybody he ever saw that got on marijuana went to harder drugs.
Yeah,
And of course back then it was only 3 or 4%.
that's right.
Today it's significantly more
Right.
potent. And so I think some of this is, you know, people starting on marijuana.
Right.
And so I think we need to stop this, because, I mean, right now, if you have somebody out on the street that's driving drunk from alcohol, at least you have a way to test them. How do you test these folks?
Well, and you know, quite frankly, if someone used marijuana for legitimate purposes, for glaucoma or something like that, it's still in their system weeks later. And if they did an accident, not because of, but how would they defend themselves against it? They couldn't. And you're right, the field sobriety test does not apply, I think, to marijuana. And so it is significantly more difficult to enforce, and it is a gateway drug. I understand that. I think what most people don't understand is when you go to a dispensary, there's no difference from recreational to medical. It is the same drug that you're buying. And I looked this up in California. If you go to the California dispensary, if you have a medical marijuana card, you just get like a 10% discount. But it's the same stuff. And so there's no recreational or medical use with Prop 207. It is what it is. And so, Rand, where are you at on this?
I voted yes on 207. The information that I've read out of Colorado, I think, seems to be the case study. And I've heard a lot of opposition and things that people have said have gone wrong. But since they passed the medical marijuana, or the recreational marijuana initiative up there, the state of Colorado's taken in $1.2 billion in tax revenues.
Wow.
Sales between 6 and 10 million. You know, do I personally think that's a great thing? No, but I think it's up to the individual. If the individual wants to smoke marijuana and that's their life, that's fine. As long as they're doing it responsibly in their house, or, you know, whatever. And I want to make clear also that even if I personally vote for an initiative like that, that doesn't mean that if the taxpayers turn it down, that I'm going to be irritated and fight against it. It's the voice of the voters. It's what the voters, either they want it or they don't want it. So,
That's right.
And I will support that either way.
Oh, great. That's good to know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm not for it for many reasons, but primarily it's a voter initiative. And once a voter initiative becomes law, legislatures can't change it, the governor cannot
It
change
becomes
it.
very difficult.
Yeah.
It'd be very difficult. It'd take 2/3 of the vote to
I think
override.
it's 2/3 or 3/4, yeah.
And that's another thing we kind of talked about a little while ago, is that if the state legislature had been proactive, they knew that these initiatives were coming down the pipeline. If they had been proactive and created crafted a law that was beneficial to the state and took into account all of these possibilities.
Right.
But they didn't. So they left it up to initiative. Now it's up to the voters, and we'll see what the voters say.
And I feel as if they let us down because they knew the initiative was
Right.
coming. They could have legislated the issue and they didn't. There's other ways to do things and they chose not to. There's another proposition on the book.
Well, let me just finish up on 207 if I can for a moment. One of the things, of course, is I understand there's going to be a 16% excise tax for the people who buy this.
Right.
So a lot of people are saying, well, we're going to make a lot of money.
Right.
But what we found out in Colorado is that for every dollar you get in tax, you spend 4.5 to manage it.
Oh, I'm sure.
So
Absolutely.
it costs you tremendously more to deal with all the effects of having to deal with people, being arrested, having accidents. It's doubled their death rate in highway accidents. So I think it's something that has to be looked at very closely.
Well, and there is one part of that 207 I do support, and that is all drug charges in Arizona are felonies, including minute amount of marijuana. And in fact, drug paraphernalia is a felony. And so we have a lot of people in prison, and we have a lot of people that lost their civil rights for just a small amount of marijuana. And I don't agree with that. I think that there's severity of crimes. You have felonies, you have misdemeanors. I think someone that happens to be caught with a small amount, it would probably fall under a misdemeanor in my book, and I certainly don't think they should be in prison.
Right, and that's it. And that's another thing. I'm glad you brought that up. That I think I read that over 4,000 prisoners could be nonviolent, marijuana-only arrests would be vacated and released from prisons and jails throughout the state.
Right.
How many tax dollars is that going to save? Almost immediately.
Oh,
Plus
absolutely.
ongoing tax dollars. What's the cost to imprison somebody for a year or 2 years? $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 a
Yeah.
year?
Well, you guys remember the 3 strikes are out?
Right.
It doesn't matter what the strikes were.
Right.
3 strikes, you go to prison automatically. And so that is one element that I do like. I might not like the whole thing, but there's parts of it I can see where it would make sense. So let's talk about the other initiative, the Prop 208. That's another voter-driven initiative. Again, if it passes, it becomes just like a constitutional amendment almost. What's your take on that?
Well, I'm against it. Basically, I feel that, what they're doing is, first of all, I kind of agree with Tim Carter on this, the superintendent of schools, who indicates that it's probably unconstitutional.
I do too.
And, how do you take just one segment of society and says, we're just going to tax you,
Right.
when it should be spread across everybody.
Sure.
And I think it's everybody that's earning $400,000 or more a year or something like that. Again, I know that Doug Ducey he had his 2020 program where he would increase, funding 20% by 2020. I think he's on line to get that done.
Sure.
It's been hundreds of millions of dollars. It still may not be enough.
Right.
One thing it will make us one of the top 10 most taxed states in the union.
Yeah, we're already feeling like we're a suburb of LA sometimes, right? Because being in real estate, I talk to a lot of people, most of them from California, and they are fleeing the state with the new propositions that are on the ballot in November. They feel like they're overtaxed, they're overgrowth, they're not given services from the government that they deserve, even though they pay for it. And so a lot of them they're just giving up. They're like, we're just tired of it. And I feel like we're getting that way sometimes here. And so it's nice that the governor is taking hold of that. Ryan, what's your thought on this 208?
I'm also against 208. I think another tax is not what we need at this time.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you're only singling out one portion of the population to increase the tax on, I agree with Harry. I think that's completely unconstitutional.
And the Secretary of State.
And if somebody like Tim Carter, Tim Carter was a teacher when I was in high school, and
Yeah.
he was adamant about kids in high school knowing their constitutional rights.
That's right.
So if Tim Carter thinks it's unconstitutional, I would guess it probably is. So.
I'm not going to argue with Tim. I
Yeah.
like Tim a lot and have a lot of respect for him.
I don't think many people argue with Tim. So
He was my son's football coach and later his principal. And so I talked with Tim a lot during the kids were in high school. And I agree with you. I think 208 is probably unconstitutional, and certainly a lot of the money when it comes to this educational system tends to stop at the superintendent's offices in many of these school districts. It never actually hits the classroom. That it's a money management issue. It's not throwing more money at it's not going to solve the problem, in my opinion. So,
And if it doesn't all go to the classroom, that's what I'm understanding is, if this passes, it doesn't say where it's going to go.
that's right. That's
And, you know, they keep saying classroom, classroom, classroom. We got to pay the teacher. We got to support the classroom. Okay, if that's the case, why doesn't this initiative say that?
Well, and it, you know, it says it goes to support the classroom, so that means the superintendents, all the administrative staff, and all the things that they do. It doesn't say it goes to the school teacher or school supplies or school classroom technology. It's not specific enough. Again, it's a voter initiative. It's something that the legislature, I feel, could have legislated. The governor could have maybe guided them through that, and that didn't happen. And now it could be basically a constitutional amendment. So tell me what's going on between now and November 3rd with you.
I just trying to get out to as many people as I can through my Facebook at Elect Rand. I've been posting about twice a week, and I'm gonna up that now. I've heard some spots that Harry's done on KYCA. Those sound excellent. A lot of support for Harry. If I lived in District 1, I'd definitely vote for Harry. So
If I lived in District 1, and same way with District 1,
Yeah.
I wish I could.
so yeah, just trying to reach as many more people as I can. So
Now, is what I have done is called people that I know, friends and family in your district, and say, hey, make sure you vote for Rand, and here's why. And so I think that all responsible people should do that. So if you know somebody, tell them get out and call, you know, and you got to do the right thing. Harry?
Well, kind of getting back to your back in the blue here, I had a former police officer talk to me just the other night, and said he's in 4, and he says he voted for you
Oh, good.
because he's totally against the jail.
Yeah.
And he thinks the BOS let him down, and he said there's a lot of former police officers, sheriffs
Mm-hmm.
that believe that way. I've also talked to the Tri-City Blue group, which I understand is close to 300.
Right.
They're against the jail.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, the fact that people are saying that people against the jail want to defund the police, that's incorrect, because I can tell you the sheriff has got all the money in the BOS budget that he wants.
He has 20, when you add the courts, which is a small budget, and the sheriff's office, it's 56% of the county budget.
Yes.
Not counting the money that we get from the feds for warehousing and holding prisoners. That's not in our system. And so it's a significant amount of money. It's more than any other county that I've ever lived in. And I looked it up. I lived in a lot of places in my 61 years, and 56% is a chunk, and it's a lot of money. And it's going to get bigger. That portion that's going to, when the jail gets done, that's just going to keep growing. It'll eventually be 100%.
Right.
And so,
well, and it's a big county. There's a lot of,
82 square miles.
there's a lot of officers that are needed to cover that ground. So,
Sure.
is that percentage of the budget a little high? Yeah, maybe, but taking into account the size of our county,
Right.
yeah, and the overall job that the sheriff's department does, I think is fabulous. So.
Well, no, I think they do a great job. I think the point we're trying to make is that by building this jail and the plan that they're on, is going to take money away from the patrol people and be having to be used towards the jail to keep it. So the sheriff will have to live within his budget, and it is a big budget. So I guess my thinking is that by doing this, they're actually trying to defund the patrol people because it's going to be an expensive jail, and they're going to have to live within a budget.
Yeah.
And so there's only so much money to go around.
So getting back to how I feel about or what I'm doing right now between now and 3 November is I'm going out and hitting a lot of doors.
I like that.
So, I got a lot of Prescott, so I can go door to door a lot easier than you can. But so far, a lot of people tell me they've already voted, and I've been pretty happy with the ones that said they were voting for me or had voted for me. And again, the jail's in District 1, so a lot of District 1 people have indicated their approval of my position on trying to do something to stop the jail and move it to a place where it would be more
I
suitable.
think it's a pivotal thing. I know your opponent came out in support of red flag laws for people that might not be aware of what that is. It's a way to circumvent your Second Amendment rights.
Yes.
And it seemed like that person was all for it. What's your take on it?
I'm against red flag laws. I think there's sufficient laws in the books.
Mhm.
I think all we have to do is utilize them, enforce them, and I think it's just a quick way to do something that you think is going to be beneficial, but it's actually taking away our rights.
Right, absolutely. Rand, what's your thoughts?
I am absolutely pro Second Amendment. As a candidate running, I find that seems to be a huge issue in this county.
Right.
I don't know what it is exactly that the Board of Supervisors is expected to do about that. It's a right that's guaranteed in the United States Constitution. And so unless they change the Constitution, then I don't think there's any way that anybody's going to take our guns away from us.
Yeah, there's a big to-do in Missouri over that. The county sheriff over there decided not to enforce some of those laws, and it's been a thing here.
Right.
So I'm against the red flag law.
Yes,
Very
absolutely.
much pro Second
Absolutely.
Amendment too. So let's go ahead and wind this segment up. Fran, why don't you give us a couple of minutes why people should put your name on the ballot?
I've lived in Prescott and Yapa County for 45 years, except for I lived a few years after high school in Phoenix and a few years in Southern California. I lived in Southern California long enough to realize that that wasn't the place to be. We moved back, started a business, and have been enjoying a pretty good lifestyle here in Yapa County. The reason I wanted to run is because the past few years I've been seeing more and more our elected officials are not listening to us. They seem to be disconnected from the voters and what the voters want. And if, at the very least, I think that what I would bring to the table is an open ear and an open mind. I wouldn't come in with preconceived notions of what it is that's best for the county. I think that the voters know what's best for the county. So
That's right.
yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have not heard that from another candidate before, and I've listened to all of them. So, Harry?
Yeah, my name's Harry Oberg, running for Board of Supervisors, District 1. I've been a long-time resident of this county. I got here in '49, graduated from Prescott High School in 1965. Spent 33 years in the military. Had 2 tours in Vietnam as a helicopter pilot. Retired from military service with rank of colonel on active duty and brigadier general in the Army National Guard. I had 1 term here as mayor, and I feel that everything I did as mayor translates directly to my responsibilities as a supervisor. So I've already got a 2-year jump on a lot of the issues such as water and building codes and other things. So I know when I talk to people right now out in the rural areas, they have a lot of issues with building codes, and I think that's going to be an area that I'm going to be dealing with quite often.
That's a huge issue.
That's a huge issue.
I've been getting an earful in District 4 about property right issues, so, yeah.
You know, I will say, and I appreciate you mentioned, both of you mentioned that you listen to the voters and the people in the building code. And I remember the person you're running against, the incumbent, getting some emails that I was copying on, and the one-word response, liar. And people don't deserve that. Voters don't deserve to be treated that way by their elected officials. And so I'm glad you guys were in. So very happy. Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Prescott Gallery of Homes. I'm your host, Steve Irwin. Have a great day.